Greetings, Marcus Melnick, firearms educator and author. My last YouTube video, someone asked me to make a video on some concealed carry tips. So this is your concealed carry tip video. There are 6 things you should be aware of. There's more than 6, but I'm going to cover 6. First of all, when you begin to carry a firearm, you may have to adjust your wardrobe. If you are used to wearing snug fit clothing or body forming clothing, you're going to have to loosen it up because your gun will basically print or show an outline through your clothing. You may also have to wear something over your clothing or over your shirt like a jacket. I happen to be wearing a sport coat. Tip number 2, always use a holster. For those of you who grew up in the 80s and watched the Tom Selleck Magnum PI, he always had a 1911 45 and he would stick it in the back of his pants right where the crack of his you-know-what is. Very unsafe. You should always have a holster. Your holster should cover the trigger. That way an object cannot get into the trigger guard and discharge the firearm. Even when you're doing pocket carry, you can get things like a trigger guard holster. I'll have a link to that where it's just basically a little clip, little thing that goes over the trigger guard with a lanyard on it. That's the only part of the gun that's in the holster, but it won't fire. Tip number 3, you may need to change your behavior. And what I mean is, if you don't need to go into a rough area, don't go into a rough area. If you drive like a bat out of hell, you might want to slow down when you're carrying a firearm. Most importantly though, when you're at a store and you're carrying your firearm, you're going to need to change the way that you reach for things. Because I'm right-handed. If I were to raise my right hand and reach something on top shelf, Ritz crackers, for example, and my coat rides up and all of a sudden my firearm is exposed, that's going to freak people out and that may draw unwanted attention to you. And it's different than a Karen in a store giving you attention than the police being called and then you having to explain to your police that it was an inadvertent display of your firearm. Rule number 4, this one's an important one. If you're carrying a gun, keep it a secret. Nobody needs to know that you're carrying a gun. They're going to look to you for help. Strangers are going to look to you for help as if you are SEAL Team Marcus. You are not SEAL Team Marcus. You are responsible for yourself, your own safety, and perhaps the safety of the people around you. Someone asks you, you carrying a gun? What I do is I use humor to kind of redirect the question. I'll say, am I carrying a gun? I got 2 guns and they're right here, thunder and lightning. And that way you don't use any bad words. The person typically laughs and I've never been approached and said, no, really, are you carrying a gun? Usually that diffuses the situation. Nobody knows if you're having a gun. The next rule is very similar to the change your behavior. You are not a hero. That's number 5. Remember, the law enforcement is there, firefighting is there to save people. You are there to save yourself. Yes, you are an active participant in your own safety. But your own safety, quote, is what I'm talking about. Your own safety, not the safety of mall goers, not the safety of, someone out in a park. Final rule for this video, or final tip, I should say, for this video, is buy a good belt. And when I say a good belt, I mean a belt that is designed to support a firearm. If you go to JCPenney or Sears or Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's or wherever you go, Von Maur, and you go to buy a belt, those belts are not reinforced with a polymer or plastic insert. And especially if they're leather, they will stretch. Ultimately, they will stretch so much that your holster will have the gun pointing into your leg. That is why getting a good holster-made belt is critical for you to carry. There are dressy belts, and I will include a link to my favorite belt that I'm wearing right now called the Next Belt, where you can get one. I like it because it's a ratcheting gun belt. I've had recent weight loss, so instead of having to punch new holes, I just basically shorten the belt and put a couple clicks and you're at a 1/4 inch as far as tightness goes, as opposed to an entire inch, which is where the holes would be if you had holes punched in your belt. Those are the 6 tips I have for this video on concealed carry. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Stay safe, everyone.